Hey everyone, Harold Fisher here, anchor and host of the Daily Drum on WHUR. Welcome to another edition of HUR at Home on WHUR.com and all of our social media platforms. Tonight on HUR at Home, we're talking to civil and human rights attorney and Black Power scholar Nkechi Taifa. She has a new book out entitled Black Power, Black Lawyer, My Audacious Quest for Justice. Nkechi, thank you so much for talking to us. I appreciate your time.
I'm really glad to be here with you, and I'm ready for it.
Good. Well, I hope you still have some energy, because that conversation that we just had on the Daily Drum about reparations for chattel slavery in D.C., whew, I need a break.
It was a wonderful conversation, and I was glad to join you and Councilmember Kenyon Jeffrey for that conversation.
Absolutely. And for our listeners who did not have a chance to hear it, of course, we're going to post that on WHUR.com, as we do with all of our Daily Drum programs after 9 o'clock tonight. So before I get into the book, I want to really kind of take a moment to pick your brain about where we are right now in our broader Black community in this terrible year of 2020. We've had the murder of Ahmaud Arbery, George Floyd, Breonna Taylor. And if I just went down the list of what we've seen over the past couple of years, then I could just say end the program, because it's been a really difficult year for Black people who should be alive today. From your perspective in 2020, have we made any progress at all compared to the Black Power movement of the 60s and 70s?
Well, I've got to say that the more things change, the more they remain the same. Whether we're talking about the struggles on the table today, from police misconduct to brutality to police murders, whether we're talking about voting suppression, whether we're talking about a Supreme Court ever tilting to the right, whether we're talking about mass incarceration, whether we're talking about the economic wealth gap, the health disparities, the educational inequities, whatever we're talking about, there's a direct connection to what was going on yesterday, and there's not been much change whatsoever, which is why it is so very critically important right now in 2020 that people get off their butts and get to the vote, because we are going down a slippery slope here. Okay, we're talking about, armed white terrorists, talking about kidnapping a governor. If they're talking about kidnapping a governor, right, there was another one. Exactly.
Governors.
Virginia.
Gretchen Whitmer in Michigan and
Virginia.
Ralph Northam in Virginia.
So what do you think they got in store for us? I'm just saying, we're living in some very, very scary times. And we got to do something about it. And the first place to go is to the ballot box.
Mm-hmm. One of the other things that happened today, which you may or may not be aware of, is that the Supreme Court has ordered right now the immediate halting of census taking.
I missed that.
And you're certainly excused from missing that, because it is, at the time of this, it's 8:20. That happened about 6 hours ago, maybe 5 hours ago. That's when it came down, as you know. In addition to determining congressional representation, Census also helps to make decisions about how much money communities get. And the fear from civil rights organizations is that people of color and people who are difficult to count, such as undocumented immigrants and others, may not be in that number. Now that you know that, more broadly speaking, how does that affect again where we are when we're talking about the impact of these issues on people of color?
Well, I think it's a sad commentary on this country that they can halt the taking of the census, yet steamroll through Supreme Court nomination that's going to have a direct impact on, or a lifetime impact, basically, on what's going on. So, while they have stopped one thing, they're steamrolling through something else. And, the irony of it all just must not escape us.
Talk to me about your thoughts about the Black Lives Matter movement. What is your opinion of it? How does it compare to other parts of history in America?
Okay, so again, there's nothing new under the sun. Okay, I grew up during the Black Power era. I grew up kind of after the civil rights, in terms of coming of age. I came in of age, Malcolm X, by any means necessary, self-defense, and all like that. And it greatly impacted me. But what I don't quite understand is that how we went from the pinnacle of the slogan Black Power to today to what I gotta call the minimalist moniker of just being able to breathe, just to say that our lives matter. What does that say for us as a people? I mean, I'm just saying, no, we don't really look at it in that context, but the 60s and 70s, Black studies in the school, Black is powerful, Black and proud, and all of that. And now we just are trying to get the man's knee off our neck. It's like, it's kind of scary. You would have thought that we would have progressed far more astronomically than we have. I can't even say we're taking baby steps. It's like we're taking backward steps. Okay. And it is frightening, because it seems as if the Civil War never actually ended. We thought it ended, but some other folk didn't think it's ended. And it's becoming very evident and very clear and very plain that today, whether you're talking about I don't even know what to call the bad boys or the Boogaloo boys or the Proud Boy, whatever they are. Okay. The handwriting's on the wall. And we need to get together as a people. We need some Black unity. We need to stop shooting each other out there in the streets. Okay. We need to, come together, because the threat that is out there is reminiscent, hopefully not, but in my mind, reminiscent to the massacre of entire towns like Tulsa or Wilmington, North Carolina, or Lane, Arkansas. These are things that we did not necessarily learn in the history books, but are beginning to come out now as a result of pop culture and movies that are out there and all that. So even when we're talking about in the context of reparations and reparatory justice, we're behind the 8 ball on a lot of these issues. There are unresolved issues since the time of the Civil War, which again, some people think never ended.
So let me throw this out to you. When you were making the comparison between the Black Power movement and, there we go with my comment about the floor of Black lives. Yeah. As a person who has, as a student of history, do you think that it is possible that the Black lives portion of the Black Power movement was seen as there were going to be casualties as a result of the Black Power movement, if you're talking about, by any means necessary, and as we had already seen in the civil rights movement prior to the Black Power movement, that Black people, unfortunately, died to achieve what they were going to do. And now with Black lives, maybe Black people are saying it is time for us to stop expecting casualties.
And that's a good point. And maybe that is what's going on and happening now, because not only were there casualties, there are people still languishing in prison as a result of the war that was being waged against Black people, the war of COINTELPRO, the FBI's once secret, quite illegal program to disrupt and destroy, in their own words, the Black movement. There are people who have been sitting in jail for over 40 years, going on 50 years as a result of that. And we talked about reparations earlier. One of the tenets of the Japanese American reparations bill was a pardon for all those who resisted detention camp internment. We need to turn that around and say, okay, these people like Sundiata Acoli and Mutulu Shakur, former members of the Black Panther Party, Black Liberation Army, who are languishing in prison today as a direct result of the COINTELPRO, they need a pardon. They need to come home. And I'm thinking that maybe, I'm not sure, but maybe some of the Black Lives Matter people, seeing what went on in the past, seeing what's going on with George Floyd and Michael Brown and Arbery and Breonna Taylor and Yana Steele, and all the list goes on and on and on, and it's endless, that the most people feel comfortable even pronouncing is our lives matter. If nothing more, that is the floor, like you said, if nothing more, our lives matter. But we got to go far beyond our lives just being matter. We need to go back to some Black power. We need to go back to self-determination. We need to go back to political, economic, and cultural, relevant empowerment. That's what Black power is, in my humble opinion, is all about.
So let's talk about the opinions in your book, Black Power, Black Lawyer, My Audacious Quest for Justice. Why did you write this book beyond the obvious?
So my story, and I always say this, but I think it's important, it's not just my personal story, which is serious and sassy and scandalous and spicy, but it's also, I must say it's it a personal glimpse from an insider's perspective into the movements I was a part of: the anti-apartheid movement, the Black nationalist movement, the Black power movement, the movement to free political prisoners, the reparations movement, the movement against mass incarceration. So what I wanted to do was to highlight a number of things that influenced and inspired me that you would not read about in the history books. You think my African name is hard to pronounce? Well, I got folk in there like Chokwe Lumumba, who was my legal mentor, who ended up being the mayor of Jackson, Mississippi. But before that, he was talking about free the land in 5 states in the Deep South. He was my legal mentor. Brother Imari Abubakari Obadeli, we're talking about someone who spent years in prison, again, as a result of COINTELPRO. When I was a student at Howard in the 70s, I was head of the National Committee to free the RNA 11, which resulted in the release of he and 11 others from unjust incarceration. We're talking about Queen Mother Audley Moore. Most folk had never even heard of this woman. We're talking about someone who came during the Garvey movement, the Marcus Garvey movement, on down to all of the other movements. She was the queen of reparations in this country. I sat at her feet. I learned from her. I dedicated my book to her. Reverend Shaka Musa Barashango. I'm talking about, our tongues have been colonized. I know it's hard to understand some of these names, but we were talking about self-determination and culture and pride and adopting African names. And in fact, Harold, I got my African name from a Black bookstore called Drummond Spear Bookstore on 14th and Fairmont Street. The person who rang up my purchase, the African names book, was none other than Kojo Nnamdi. Used to be at WHUR. He was working the cashier at Drummond Spear Bookstore, at the time. We're talking about back in the day.
Yes, ma'am. Way back.
way back. But these are the people that influenced me. These are the things that made me want to make a difference. I'm in 8th grade and the Black Studies was just coming into the classroom. I went to Raybo Junior High School. That was in the second graduating class. Raybo was spanking new at that time. Roberta Flack, her name was Miss Novacell, had just left to become famous for Killing Me Softly and all like that. But I'm sitting in my Black Studies class, and there was this poster on the wall, on the bulletin board, of this Black man with a black beret on his hand, with a spear in one hand and a rifle in the other hand, sitting in a Grand Slam wicker chair. And all the girls in my 8th grade class were talking about how fine this brother was. But, I was asking the teacher, I said, Miss Lane, well, why is he in prison? And why is he being represented by white lawyers? I said, where are the Black lawyers to represent the Black people? And I just couldn't understand why the head of the Black Panther Party, Huey P. Newton, was being represented by white lawyers. Yes, they were revolutionary lawyers and radical and progressive lawyers. But I'm saying, where are the Black lawyers? And I knew then that I wanted to be a lawyer. I wanted to be one of those lawyers that would help to make a difference, that would help to represent the Black people, ABC 1, 2, 3, and the rest of that is history.
Well, but I want to talk a little bit more, and I appreciate you talking about the people who have impacted you. But I want to know about you. And are you satisfied with the work that you have been able to do thus far? And where do you see your work, your life's work, taking you now?
So I am thrilled that I was able to get my book out. Many people have departed without leaving their imprint.
Right.
Many issues, many stories of the coming of age people, what they did in the, we don't know about because they, for whatever reason, were not able to take the time to sit down and write it down. We need blueprints for future generations to come. And that's one of the things I wanted my book to be, one of those blueprints, but to share again about my influences, okay? And to bring out people and issues that were not part of the what do we call the acceptable civil rights era, I guess you could say. But those were non-compromising. Those where, don't get scared, but where Black folk didn't die, but police officers died. I'm just saying, it self-defense, okay? But we don't hear about those stories, okay? And I talk about some of those stories in my book, because I think it's important for folks to know that there is another narrative that is out there and that people did fight and win and went to prison and died, as well. But I really want the generation that's out there today to look at what happened yesterday and connect these historical dots so that they can, in the words of the great scholar Frantz Fanon, can discover their mission. Each generation, he said, each generation must discover their mission, fulfill it, or betray it. Okay. And so they need to learn what is going on behalf so that they can discover what their generation is going to be and do and fulfill that. And I think they are, in fact, doing that. I'm proud of what I'm seeing out there in the street. I must admit, I ain't been out there. Been there, done that. I'm older. I'm trying to keep myself safe from the coronavirus and all like that. But they are out there and they are doing it. And guess what? They going much for. I was never even talking about defund the police. I was talking about law enforcement reform. They are taking this and they are going and they are defining what that means. They are defining that means a shift in resources from punishment to humanity. Mm-hmm. You know what I mean? A shift in attitude from the warrior cop mentality to the public servant type of mentality.
Reimagining, as we often say.
Justice, got it. Yeah.
I before I let you go, and I can talk to you forever about this, but I'd be remiss if I didn't mention that as it relates to your book, our beloved Dr. Greg Carr, who was the chair of the Afro-American Studies Department here at Howard, shared his thoughts about the book. What does that mean to have such a big brain, someone with that depth, with that breadth, as we say, who is just black?
Yeah.
Give you the nod about that.
I was so thrilled that Professor Greg Carr wrote the foreword to my book. He did it up. I said, oh my God, is that me he's talking about? I mean, I was quite honored and I was quite humbled, I must say. And it wasn't just Red Car. There were folk who wrote blurbs on the back of my book. The iconic Angela Davis, the actor Danny Glover, the poet Nikki Giovanni, you know, people who influenced me, the son of the Honorable Marcus Garvey, the daughter of Chokwe Lumumba, Bukia, Lumumba, James Foreman Jr., the son of the civil rights icon, and on the hardback cover, Sister Sonia Sanchez, and I was just very humbled that people came forward to endorse, my work. And so, yeah, the big brains, you got it.
Yeah, absolutely. So where can people get a copy of your book, and where can I get a copy with the right name written? Not Howard, but Harold. Where can I?
You just by my accent. Oh no.
Yeah, I mean, there's a little shade there.
But first of all, go to your favorite Black or independent bookstore. That's number one, and ask for it if they don't have it. I know Sankofa has it, but ask for it at your favorite Black and independent bookstore. Or you can get it from Amazon. It's at Amazon, Barnes and Noble, Books A Million, IndieBound. Wherever books are sold, just ask for Black Power, Black Lawyer, my audacious quest for justice. Or you can go to my website. I'm not selling it to my website. There's loads of information on my website about the book and about me. www.blackpowerbblacklawyer.com.
Okay. And are we going to get you on that reparations task force that Council Member Kenyon McDuffie from DC's Ward 5 was talking about on our show? I said during the show, we need to have your big brain and your voice on that task force.
Well, I think the mayor makes appointments and the city council makes appointments. There are many big brains out there. So we'll just wait to see what happens. But there are many big brains out there. Trust me.
Yeah, well, there needs to be room made for you. We really need to have room made for you. I really appreciate, the time that you have spent. I know that you are, incredibly busy, but I want to thank you for, what you've done, for the Black community, for DC, and congratulations on the book. And I'm sure there are going to be a lot of things that you're going to be doing in the years to come. So I really appreciate it. Nkechi Taifa. You are thebomb.com. Keep doing your thing.
Thank you so much, very much. And I'm glad to be part of the show.
Absolutely. That is it for this edition of HUR at Home. I am Harold Fisher. And as always, I will see you on the radio.